All right, so Eolus Wind was founded in 1990 and was the first commercial wind company. Eolus Wind is the biggest wind power company listed on the Swedish stock market. Their estimated share in Sweden is about 15%. What they do is they design, develop, and maintain wind power plants primarily in Sweden, but also in Norway, Finland, and the US. They're also in the Baltic countries of Estonia and Latvia. A good benchmark to compare Eolus Wind to, like their size, is Vestavind, who is the world's largest turbine power producer, and their market cap is 320 billion SEK, whereas Eolus Wind's market cap is 4.9 billion SEK. The two main trends that drive the wind power market are global increases in global environment awareness and also an energy demand of global in the world, in which effects of the greenhouse climate change play a major role. We also have a growing interest in renewable energy in the world and a strong ESG movement. The four largest shareholders hold about 40% of the votes. They're through private people or as themselves or like a company. The second largest shareholder is the chairman of the board. Some of the competitors that they have directly is Vestas Wind, Arise, Slight Wind, and other companies in the green energy sector are indirect competitors such as AES Corporation, Ministo, and Seatwirl. These companies are all publicly listed on different stock markets from the US to Denmark. The competitive advantage that Eolus Wind has is that they're well established. They have a noticeable presence in Sweden and they're starting to grow in the US. Eolus Wind started 30 years ago, and it was only in their first year that they didn't make profit on the last line.
So here is a summary of some key financial ratios over 10 years. I will not go into depth in all of these numbers because the history isn't the most important. The important thing is to compare the most recent one with the competitors. But we can see that the revenue hasn't come up to the level of 2019 yet. However, their net income has increased by 28%. And we can see higher earnings per share and a large proportion of equity and cash right now in the firm, which is good. So they're well prepared for the future. Starting off by the profit margin, we can see that Eolus has the second highest after Ørsted, but they are also selling natural gas, etc. So they are not really a perfect benchmark. Eolus has the highest return on equity on nearly 17%. And one of my favorite financial ratios, EV/EBIT. And it is one of my favorites since it both shows the profitability and take the level of debt into consideration. So here, once again, they are second. And we also have the price to tangible book value, 4.3, which is better than Vestas, better than Ørsted, not the lowest, but better than the mean. And we have the pH ratio of 25 and the PEG of 0.9. And there I prefer PEG since it takes the EPS growth. We have price to sale of 2.8, which once again is not the lowest, but better than the mean.
Yeah.
And lastly, we have debt to equity. And that one is favorable since in theory they could pay off their debt with their equity if they wanted. I will also do a technical analysis of Eolus. So starting off by a 3-year history of stock price. Then I add the red linear trend line, which is the average value and the correlation of the stock price throughout this period. I don't know if you see my mouse here, but we have the two blue lines which is the Bollinger Band, which is an approximation of the upper and lower limit of the trading range. And the stock should not go too far out from that range. And it might have begun to become a bit stretched now. Under the graph, we have RSI, which is a logging momentum indicator. And as we could see from pre-corona, the RSI peaked at nearly 80, and we are not in those extreme levels yet. Might indicate that we have more room for growth at the short run. The second indicator, MACD, that measures the strengths of buyers and sellers through two exponential moving averages. And we saw a MACD crossover here a couple of weeks ago when we decided to pitch Eolus. But ironically, after that, it has increased by 60%. So things can change very quickly here. But it's not yet the negative sign from MACD, because when EMA 12 is above EMA 26, it's a positive sign. Stochastic, however, that also measures the degree of security, if it's overbought or not, actually have begun to done a reversal now. So to conclude all of this, I am expecting a shorter correction in price in the short frame, or a consolidation period. But since we have passed the previous year's high, I'm pretty optimistic towards the outlook of 21. So despite the short-term bearish signals, I think we have room for continued growth the coming year. Thank you for me. Leaving over to Philip here.
Yeah, thank you for that, Samuel. Yeah, so we have some breaking news. Last night, Donald Trump actually said that he will leave the White House if the Electoral College will vote on Biden later on here. So that is something that should be beneficial for the ESG companies, or the green energy companies. And also, as you all know, there's a pandemic still going on out there, and this has affected Eolus also with some delays in their projects. With borders that are closed, and they have like parts delivered from China, stuff like that. So it takes a longer time to come here. But in their Q3 report, in their Q3 report that was released a couple of weeks ago here, they reduced their revenue, but surprised with higher profits, and with an order stock of 4 billion Swedish kronor in their pipeline, and with large cash reserves, they're in a good position to benefit from the new green wave that is flourishing around the world. And now, as I said, with the US presidential election, where Joe Biden is pro huge investments in renewable energy, as well as Sweden and the EU environmental goals, having large regulatory incentives for green energy and infrastructure. I think you should go back in the slides there.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. In July, Eolus signed a cooperation agreement with SCA. SCA is a Swedish company that owns forest, and actually Europe's largest private owner of forest. it was regarding development of wind power projects on SCA's land, and some future news that could affect Eolus and the whole wind power, as well as the green energy market in general, is more geopolitical decisions and money towards these areas if they are realized. Yeah, you can switch. Yeah, and a fun fact about Eolus is that they actually sold a power plant in California that Amazon Web Services take their electricity from. So I guess it's good to have big names that uses their electricity and use their services, so to speak. And with cheaper lithium batteries that are produced, it opens up opportunities of storage solutions for the electricity that the wind power creates. So even if it's not strong winds one day, the power plants can still send out electricity to their consumers. And Eolus also develop and build some solar projects, so they diversify their market as well, which we think is positive. And some risks with the company, well, it's pretty big project that Eolus is working with. And since it's not them that actually builds their windmills nor their parks, it's companies like Skanska and Veidekke that build the parks. So a lot can happen during the development period. And the projects that they are working with now are planned to be finished in the range of 2021 to 2024. So there might be some different kinds of delays that will happen. And there can also be some political risks that you should consider, both from a big point of view, from EU incentives and everything, down to the smaller in the communities that Eolus build their parks. And the continuation of COVID-19 as well. It looks like there are a few vaccines that is on its way, but it will still take some time before things go back to what we see as normal. To conclude, we believe that the long-term case of Eolus is very interesting. We believe this company is just at the right place at the right time, with their order stock of 4.5 billion SEK, and that wind power produces much more energy than solar, with the possibility to store electricity, so it's still available when strong winds doesn't exist, and the possibilities of building windmills out in the ocean, as well as huge demand and structural incentives. We think that this company makes a strong base in a diverse portfolio. And even though these green electricity companies trade at a premium compared to other industries, with more political stimulus packages and strong ESG movement, we still believe that capital will find itself to companies like Eolus. And as Samuel said, the stock has went up tremendously since the US election, almost 60%. We still believe that the stock has more to give, and we have a forward-looking stock price of 260 SEK per share, given that the earnings per share will come back to 2018's and exceed that, and the earning per share was around 8 Swedish kronor per share in 2018. And if the market sees the potential to give Eolus a multiple expansion to PE 33 during 2021, 2022, something like that, and that is quite low towards their peers actually, that are ranging between 40 to 60. Some of the companies that Matt spoke about in the beginning there. And with 400 million in cash, there are also possibilities for an extra dividend next year, which is also interesting for people looking for higher dividend yields. And 2020 is kind of a last year revenue-wise, but we look forward and we see a bright future for Eolus. Yeah, thank you.